Hello everyone and welcome to my next VOD. Today I am going to bring you M plus key. We are going to show you Junkyard on a plus 18. I ended up getting a push group together. Myself as the Brewmaster tank. I have a Restoration Druid, a Assassination Rogue, a Demon Hunter, and a BM Hunter for this key. This is going to be more of a coach to coach section, so we're going to watch this together. I'll make my comments as we end up doing this and kind of see what we did with the initial pathing and everything. Let's see, when we get all buffed up here, I think. So at the start, we always go to Gunker first if it's available. So we're going to go to the left, avoiding this pack right here. We want to make sure we avoid that pack as much as possible, not pull it, because we really don't need it for percentage. So at first I tried to go down this way. I can never get that. I see some people doing it. For some reason, I just can't do it. So, see, like they were able to do it. I just can't. So the most important thing here is to make sure that we get the shock bots as quick as possible. There's a shock bot here on X, and then one up here as well. So we pull both of these together, just making sure we avoid their AoE splatter, and then as the tank, you got to move them out when they hit the exhaust. Have two of your DPS grab the shock bots. And then once we kill them down, we're going to move to the next section, which will be down towards Gunker. So the nice part about those is they should do that self-destruct there at about 10 to 20%. If they do that, then that's free damage that you don't have to do, and that actually saves a lot of time. So that's why those are always good things to pull, because if the mechanic works correctly, then you get free percentage as far as damage and time is concerned. There's a welding bot here. Once we get this done, I end up taking it, I think. No, our healer ended up taking it there. I'll end up getting the next one, which is going to be this pack up here. So at this point, then we should be at 3 shock bots. So all of your DPS should have a shock bot to help with damage. And with Junkyard, that's the key. I mean, if you guys looked and see what Andy Brew did during this push week, he got a 28 Junkyard and in time. And so having these shock bots, and I think Junkyard is going to be next push week is going to be the one dungeon that you will be able to get possibly even a 30 key out of, due to the buffs from the bots. So this pull here, I always pull as a single. Some people will pull the slime elemental that's going to be coming up to the right of the screen with it.
It's got hand grips on the side. It's shockproof and water resistant.
You can if you want.
It has 20,000 milliamps, which
You don't have to.
up to 8 times. It's also got a convenient loop.
Let's get the music going again. So once I see the DPS getting ready to kill that, I tried to go and chain pull, but I ended up missing it there. Then I end up as a chain pull pulling these three slime elementals together. Just make the music a little bit softer there. There we go. So then once we kill these 3 slime elementals, I go into the next pull here, interrupting the bolts when you can, and then stunning the charges just to help with the damage output there. See, I should have chain pulled that into the next one. I don't know why I didn't do it. But from a time saving standpoint, I definitely should have chain pulled those two together. So when you have a BM hunter too, it's especially important that you try to keep 4 targets up to maximize the BM's hunter's DPS, where they able to spam multi-shot. So I don't know why I didn't pull those two together. Lost aggro there for a second because they went off on them. Get this down, then the slime. Another shock bot there. So now at this point in the dungeon, providing that there is no deaths to your team, everybody should have a shock bot. The tank should have a welding bot. And I believe the healer should have a grease bot as well, which is a haste buff to help with the cast times. That's where you should be at this point in the dungeon, which is why going to Gunker is always preferred, as long as the aerial unit's not over Gunker. See, I should have chain pulled those two together then. I don't know why I wasn't chain pulling then. Looking at being that it's push week, there is no reason why I shouldn't have done that. Definitely cost us some time there. Thankfully, we still ended up timing this dungeon, but it definitely could have been a lot better. See, there we go. That's more of a chain pull there. Sometimes you see in groups too, they suggest you starting back this way. And the reason why you start back this way is because of the RP for the bot once you kill this to get back towards the Gunker. I don't like to pull that way. I like to pull the way I'm doing now. So what I do is on this last bot, I pull towards Gunker, so it's less time for it to walk. This gives us time for your healer to get your mana and for everyone just to take a deep breath, because I mean we pulled all of that, and look at that, 7 minutes right there. So your healer gets full mana, his full mana is right there, and then the bot comes, and now you're ready to pull. Of course, with this one we always hero. So you saw the hero there. A lot of people make this mistake. You don't have to stand in the squirt bot the entire time. And it's actually my preference that you don't. Because if the squirt bot gets gunked and you're in there, that's a wipe to this boss. So you can get a weak aura there where it says stand in the bot. That's when I know we need to stand in it. Right now, don't need to stand in it anymore. So I myself stand out of it, and you see the hunter as well stands out of it. And that's actually what I prefer. So you see it got gunked right there. If we were all standing in that bot right there, we would have wiped right there, no questions asked. So it is one of those things where you got to make sure that you are doing the right thing and not standing in it when you don't need to. There you saw my using the Opie add-on, Opie, for second pots. When you get into high keys, it's always important to make sure you're second potting on the bosses, and then when you can, which we didn't do here, but potting on these ads when you can. So we stood and soaked in this here, and then boss down. So very, very clean. You want to try to skip this guy as much as possible. You don't really need it, but because of where it was pathing, I'm pretty impatient when it comes to a tank and waiting for stuff. So I said, let's go ahead and do it. Which, in hindsight, that's wrong. The time it took to kill this would have been longer, or is longer than the time it would have taken for it to path. So even though you're against the timer, sometimes waiting ends up being a little bit better than actually killing the mob. So we go down to this obelisk. I just move it out of the way to not have the purple stuff hit the floor around the eyes. Alrighty, and then we move it. So this placement on this one is very important with your DPS. I ran another junkyard earlier where we ended up dropping it like right there, which is very tough where it's moving right now. So that was a really tough pull to get through. But in most situations, you want to take it over here. Kill it here, come out, and just like your first pull of the dungeon, you have these guys here, which again, free percentage. A, they're not at 100% health to begin with, and then two, if mechanics are done correctly, well, not mechanics, if the mechanic of the boss or of the ad does what it's supposed to, self-destructs there, I like 10-15% there. GG, free percentage on the boss, or free percentage on the enemy forces, and saves time. So then you pull these two, because now what you're going to do is you're going to go into the room next, as you'll see, and you can pull the room out to make sure you don't avoid the pats that are walking around there, because those do a lot of damage. So see, that one didn't do the self-destruct, so we ended up having to kill it all the way. So this is an example of a good time to wait. So I saw the pat right there, but then instead of trying to pull it and crossing my fingers that it's not gonna proximity aggro, I decided to wait, knowing that where we're at in time. So pull these guys first, burn them down, and then the next one is going to be the walking pat. The walking pat is a little bit dangerous if you're not used to it as you're approaching these high keys, because there's a couple of ads in there that don't have the aggro table and will just randomly target people and shoot them. And that cast is actually not something that you can interrupt either, so that becomes a little bit dangerous. You're going to want to make sure you have stuns available, or your healer just being strong enough to heal through that damage that's just going to come through that. That's another thing I wanted to point out too that I see a lot of monks, monk tanks that are learning to do these 15, 16s and these higher keys. Want to pull every group with their cake smash. Your cake smash is your biggest damaging AoE threat generator, so you want to make sure you're not using that on pull. If you're pulling it somewhere back, pulling the pat somewhere else, you want to use your Jade Lightning, or on non-fortified weeks, so on tyrannical weeks, you should be running Crucible of the Flame Major. But on fortified weeks, you should definitely be running Conflict and Strife Major for the hot tub PvP talent. So we get this down here, I think. You can see there, that's the one that doesn't have the aggro table, so it was just going off on people. Wait for bursting to done. My healer getting mana. Because on fortified, this hurts. So you can see I pre-potted this pull here. This group next here. Again, another spider one. It does AoE damage, so that one kind of hurts a little bit. And then I think we have 2 more packs to pull. So as you're clearing this room, what you want to make sure you're doing is you're pulling around your hero. So you always want to keep hero on CD as much as possible. So see, those 2 other ads don't have an aggro table. So I personally try to focus them down first. Our healer died there. I think I lived through this. Yeah, live through it. And then our healer will get the bots that are here. So if you end up having an early death, or not an early death, I guess, but a mid-dungeon death, this is a good place to pull because you do get every bot again. And then this is the last pack here, and then we'll, I think, if I remember correctly, hero will still be on CD, maybe? So we end up pulling 1 more trash pack, and then coming back to this. Oh no, hero's up. Alright, I'm not sure when we hero on this. A lot of groups, when they do bosses, they just literally hero right off on the pull. This boss is actually wrong to do that. Let's see what we do here. It doesn't look like it. Perfect. So we actually ended up heroing at the right time. So in the junkyard, as your progression in keys, you want to make sure your hero is when Nano comes off of his bike. So watch out through the middle. So he's there. Boom. That's when we hero, and then we burn Nano. As the tank, as much as possible, you want to keep them kind of joined up together. So as you're focusing Nano, you are cleaving on to Trixie. That's how K died. We weren't sure when how K died there, but he stood on Volcano why that happened. Boom, Nano's dead, and then we finish off Trixie. Again, these 2 packs here don't have an aggro table, which as a tank is just so annoying. but we get them down. Get this next group here. The bully, you just want to make sure you interrupt the enrage, and then when he does his shockwave, you just want to make sure that you're not standing in it, especially on fortified weeks. If he's enraged and fortified, depending on the key level, that definitely could be a one-shot mechanic. Do that. Take this down. There's a shock bot in there for K to get. So we have our Demon Hunter that has a shock bot again. And then we literally just take this straight into the corner. Ooh, excuse me. That was my Zen med to avoid that damage there. As a tank, you can stand in that if you want. I choose not to for the most part because that's just extra healing my healer has to do. Nonetheless, I guess it just comes down to personal preference with your healer or your tank, depending on which class you're playing, on how you want to do that. I try to avoid any type of avoidable damage as much as possible. So I typically choose to run out unless I am trying to just commit to kill it. So this is really weird because of the pylons. You have the pylon in the back that you could get to on this boss fight. I choose not to do it. So where that guy was right there, where that scrap bot is, I always pull him separate on this one because of the limited room with the AoE and having to watch our feet. As you see there, our hunter died. So you'll see I'll mark the 3 pylons that I want to use for the shocks for King Gobomak. So while he's healing, those are the only 3 pylons you really need to use. That one in the back you really don't need. And then once we get done, we get the boss. So what happens is then you have each DPS take one of the pylons, and myself as the tank always prefers to do the robot. It really doesn't matter which one activates the robot there. It just needs to get done. So with the 3 pylons and the robot, that's all you need for this encounter to kill it successfully. Yeah, see, someone marked the orange one, and I took it down because I don't want to do that because it could pull other stuff there. So I said, no, we're not doing it. We're only doing the 3. And as a raid team, as a Mythic Plus team, this is the first time we've done Junkyard together with this exact comp group. So I'm as a tank, or whoever the leader of the group is, you just have to make that decision and make sure we stick into it. There's another charge. We soak. Get the bot. I think we missed the star charge there. Yeah, our rogue didn't get it that time, but that's okay. Actually, the bot didn't even activate either. That's weird. Alright, boss is at 5%, so good boss. So you take the portal back. So this is the hard part here, is this next part. We ended up doing it wrong, but we ended up still timing it, which is another reason why I'm kind of showing this one. Is just to show that what can go wrong versus what right looks like, I guess. So you're almost done with the dungeon. You go to the aerial unit. It's going to be the next one to go. But the question is, how do we get there? So the biggest thing you want to do is you want to avoid those middle pats because just frankly they suck. You can't go through here. I'm going to pause it right here. Right here. You can't go through this section right here because there's prowlers there and they say stealth. If you have a demon hunter, they can see through that stealth. If you have a rogue, you can shroud through here, which is what we end up doing now going forward. If you hug this side though, you typically can avoid them. However, in this case, it didn't work because of where the padding was. So we ended up grabbing them, which was the wrong thing to do. We're shrouding now from here on out, or you have a demon hunter to spectral sight to make sure you don't get them. The prowlers on fortified hurt a lot because they do a jump, and when they land on someone, it hurts a lot. So we ended up messing that. Ended up keeping everybody up except for a healer. Res the healer, I think. Nope, sure didn't. So I had my Fort Brew up. I had a second trinket, which I just used right there, which I no longer have. We ended up killing this thing. And then I end up getting our healer up. So usually that pat that we ended up getting while I was resing our healer, I pull with this group. But nonetheless, ended up chaining them together for this. And then I think we get the next group too. So you saw our Demon Hunter use his Nova there. Wrong time to use the Nova on this one because the troopers don't do a lot of damage. It's this next group that you really need. Always focus on the Renormalizer. If you have a mage and it casts Enlarge, just let it sit because that's okay. If it casts Shrink, that one always needs to get interrupted because if not, then you trample over one of your mythic team members and they die. So the reason I said if you have a mage, you let the Enlarge go off because mages can spell steal that and therefore they become enlarged and do increased damage, which is a good thing. So you can see here with this dungeon, it actually has a pretty forgivable timer, which is really nice. Having 5 deaths, and we're still able to get this timed. I think we ended up just one-chesting this. Oh yeah, looking at the time, I can tell you we just one-chested it. With this guy here, I've seen some tanks, what they do with it is they grab it and they start running right away. As a tank, you can't do that. If you have a tank, you can't let them do that. And the reason being is because they have the ads Yes, they have an aggro table, but they still only attack. They melee attack the closest person to them if it's not the tank, and that bite hurts so much on just your standard melee team. You have to have those bites going on to the tank as much as possible. If not, it's going to be pretty stressful for your healer. So I'm going to pause it right here again. This pack right here, you want to try to avoid at all costs. You don't really need it from a percentage standpoint, I believe, if you pulled the dungeon right. And it just hurts. So you wait for that to pat back. Again, focusing on the renormalizer. Interrupt the enlarge. It's dead. Go for the prowler next. Dead. There's a couple of shock bots here, so you pull these back, get the shock bots. See, the prowler just jumped right there onto our healer. There's my stun. The stuns do work on the prowlers, which is nice. And this was, with this dead, this will be 100% pull, so we did pull it correctly. Getting those extra prowlers there is probably what did it. If we don't get those prowlers there, then usually there's one more pull you have to end up making. So as a tank going into this boss, the wreck that the boss does to the tank hurts so much. You have to have a welding bot. If you don't have a welding bot, it's going to be bad news for your healer and then the tank, whether it's you or someone else, because of the damage it does. You just don't have enough tank CDs, whether it be on a monk, the fortifying brew, the Zen Med, iron bark, the trinkets. There's just not enough to go around for that. So you have to have that the welding bot to help decrease the damage and taking on it. So here we go. Boss fight here. This is pretty easy. You just avoid the stuff on the ground. Add spawning. Usually as a druid you want to run mass entanglement. We were running another dungeon where we needed something other than mass entanglement, so we didn't end up having it there, but it's okay because it still worked out to our advantage. This is where I see a lot of silly deaths. You see Hunter turtle through it. Monk can cloak a shadow, or monks. Rogues can cloak that. Demon Hunters, with their wings can do that too. This is just something where you just want to play smart with. When you get this down to about the 20%, you want your healer and your tank to stay up here and your DPS to go down, which we didn't exactly do there. And the reason being is that gives greater uptime on the boss, so your DPS is there right away, just hammering on the boss, versus having to make that run for us to make this push. I think on this one, we didn't end up getting it down all the way, so we had to do it again. I'm not sure. Double check. No, we ended up killing it. So there you go. So that is the 18 Junkyard. I think this ended up turning into Total Gore, which is just a terrible key for us that week. But we ended up getting it. So I hope you all enjoyed the 18 Junkyard. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you have any comments, you can leave me a comment, or you can at me on Twitter or follow me on Twitch. I hope you all enjoyed.